Once upon a time there was a boy named Jack and his mother, and they lived in a small cottage on the edge of a town. They were very, very poor, and Jack was very, very lazy. Jack, in the summertime, would sit outside leaning against the house, basking in the sun and sleeping. And in the winter, he'd move his chair inside, beside the fireplace, lean against the wall, and sleep. Well, it just so happened one day his mother couldn't feed him anymore. She said, "Jack, I have no money for porridge, no food to feed you. You must go out and get work. If not, you'll have to leave and fend for yourself." Well, the very next day, Jack went out and got a job at the farmer down the road. He worked hard all day, and at the end of the day, the farmer gave him 2 pennies. And Jack, never having seen money before, put it in his hand and carried it home. He was walking across the bridge just before he got to his house. He saw something flicker in the water and leaned over to see what it was. The money was gone. So he walked home, and his mother said, "Jack, you've been gone all day. Did you get a job?" And Jack said, "Yes, Mother, I did." She said, "You worked?" He said, "Yes, I worked at the farmer down the road." "And you got paid?" she said. "Yes, Mother, I got 2 pennies, but I dropped them as I crossed the bridge on the way home." And Jack's mother said, "Oh, dear boy, dear, 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 dear boy, dear boy. You should not have carried them home in your hand. You should have put them in your pocket." "Oh, Mother, next time I'll do that." Well, the next day, Jack went out and got a job at the dairy farmer. And the dairy farmer had him milking cows and cleaning stalls and doing all kinds of dairy farmer type things. And at the end of the day, Jack went home with a jug of cream, and he had remembered what his mother said. And he took that cream and he poured it in his pocket. When he got home, his mother said, "Jack, did you work today?" And Jack said, "Yes, Mother, I did. I worked at the dairy farmer down the road." And his mother said, "Jack, did you get paid?" And Jack said, "Yes, Mother, I did. I got a jug of cream, and I remembered what you said, and I put it in my pocket, but it's gone." And Jack's mother said, "Jack, you are foolish, a foolish, foolish boy. You should not have put it in your pocket. You should have carried it on your head, carefully." And Jack said, "Oh, Mother, next time I'll do that." Well, the next day, Jack went out and got another job, this time at the cheesemaker down the road. And the cheesemaker let him work all day, and he worked hard. And at the end of the day, the cheesemaker gave him a round of fresh cream cheese. And Jack took that cheese and he remembered what his mother said, and he put it on his head and carried it home. Now, it was a warm day that day, and Jack had been working very hard, so he was quite warm himself. And as he walked home, the cheese started to melt, and it sort of dribbled down his hair and over his clothes and into his eyes. And by the time he got home, it was a matted mess in his hair. And his mother looked at him and said, "Jack, did you work today?" And Jack said, "Yes, Mother, I did. I worked at the cheesemaker, and he paid me. He gave me some cheese, and I did what you told me. I put it on my head to bring it home. But he said, 'It's gone, Mother.'" And Jack's mother looked at him and said, "Oh, silly, silly lad. Silly lad, my silly lad. You should not have put it on your head. You should have carried it carefully under your arm." "Oh, Mother, next time I'll do that." Well, the next day, Jack got a job at the mill, and he helped grind the wheat and carry the flour back out to the carts and load the carts. And at the end of the day, the miller gave him a big old fat tomcat, because that's all he had left in the mill. And Jack remembered what his mother said, and he tried to carry it home under his arm, like his mother said. But the cat didn't want to be carried. It was big, and it was old and miserable. And it started to scratch him and yowl and howl, and before he got too long, the cat was gone, who knows where. And he got home and his mother looked at him, the scratches on his arms and the cat hair all over him, and said, Jack, you worked today? And Jack said, yes, Mother, I did. I worked at the mill and I worked really hard all day, and I got a wonderful tomcat to help us with the rats and the mice around the cottage. But I did what you told me, and it's gone, Mother. And she shook her head and said, Jack, what am I going to do with you? That wasn't very smart. What you should have done was tie a string around it and bring it home behind you. Oh, Mother, next time I'll do that. Well, the next day Jack went out and got a job at the butcher, and he helped. He was an amazing worker at the butcher. He was making deliveries, and he was cleaning things and cutting things and wrapping things. And sure enough, at the end of the day, the butcher was very pleased with Jack's work, and he actually gave him a leg of mutton to take home to his mother. Jack remembered what his mother said, wrapped a string around the leg of mutton to drag it home behind him. Well, he didn't get very far before one dog smelled it, called all the other dogs, and by the time he got to that bridge, the meat was gone, the bone was gone, and all Jack was dragging behind him was a string. He got home and his mother said, Jack, you worked today? Did you? And Jack said, yes, Mother, I did. I got a job at the butcher in the village. And she said, did you get paid? And he said, yes, Mother, I did. I got a leg of mutton, and I did what you told me. I dragged it home behind me. But the dogs, the village dogs got it, Mother. And she shook her head. Oh, you ninny hammer. You should not have dragged it home behind you. You should have carried it on your shoulder. Oh, Mother. Next time I'll do that. Well, his mother was very disappointed. She could have made a beautiful mutton soup, but they had cabbage soup for supper that night. And Jack didn't go to work the next day because it was a Sunday. And the next day, Jack went out to get a job. And he stopped at the stable keeper right on the edge of the village. And he saw that there was work to be done, and he asked, and he was hired to work the day. He cleaned out the stable, he fed the animals and cared for the animals and hitched them to carts and unhitched them from carts. And at the end of the day, the stable keeper was amazed at how well Jack had moved around and how well he had worked. And he said, Jack, go down to the end of the fence. That donkey, take it home. Maybe you can start gardening in your back of your cottage. It'll help you, I'm sure. So Jack walked down to the end of the fence, untied the donkey, and remembering what his mother said, struggled to put 2 legs over one shoulder and 2 legs over the other shoulder. And then he started to walk on. Well, we're lucky Jack was a strong lad, because he wouldn't have been able to even move if he wasn't. He hadn't taken more than a few steps when who should drive by but the richest man in the area and his beautiful daughter. Now, it's a very sad story about his daughter. She'd been stricken very, very young in her life with some strange affliction, and she couldn't speak, couldn't laugh, couldn't hear. Her father, who loved her dearly, had tried everything he could to cure her. He'd had every witch and doctor and sorcerer and wise woman and wise man and anyone who could help. Finally, one wise old woman said, you know, if she's able to laugh, she'll be able to speak again. You must find something to make her laugh. Well, the father had sent notices out to every corner of the world asking for someone to cure his daughter with laughter. He had promised half his wealth, half his kingdom, and half his home to whoever could cure his beloved daughter. Well, she looked out the window. She saw Jack struggling along the road, carrying this donkey with its legs sticking up in the air. And she burst into laughter and said, "Father, that's the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life." Well, his father stopped the carriage and jumped out. He invited Jack to come back to his home, where Jack called for his mother, brought her to the home. Jack got to know the young woman. They fell in love and were married, and Jack lived a life of a rich gentleman the rest of his life. And he and his mother were both very happy. That's the story of Lazy Jack from Joseph Jacobs' Old English Folk Tales.